Radar Update. My name is Daniel Vallis from InformedChristians.com, a website ministry devoted to discerning current events from a Christian and biblical perspective. This is a warning, but it is not a prediction. I do not know the future. If you have not yet had the opportunity, please download our Exodus 2, The Bride Goes to the King's House PDF, which has some excellent reminders of how the Lord has drawn our attention to various shadow patterns and celestial signs and things that we need to do in light of Christ's return, of how we make ourselves ready, just like Esther made herself ready before she went to the king's house. Also, now is a good time to download our timeline PDF too as well, the poster for that, and just review and constantly remind yourself of everything that the Lord has shown us and that we've been studying, because Satan is going to put a lot of doubt in your mind at this time. We do not know what the future holds. We do not know the day or hour. But we do know what Christ has already shown us and how he has drawn our attention to this time. And so we rest in what he has already shown us, and we wait patiently for him. And we've talked about how that is the shadow pattern that we are at right now, how it's actually built into the shadow patterns. And we've only been waiting a few days when we consider how many days the early church, the disciples, waited before Pentecost. They waited about 10 days. And depending on how you count Pentecost this year, we've either been waiting about 22 days or waiting only 15 days. So really, it's not a long time that we've been waiting so far, and considering that the early church waited 10 days, it's not too much of a stretch that the church is having to wait a little bit longer today, because we're a little bit larger today than back then. So overall, we have not been waiting a long time, so just hang in there. The bridegroom does appear to be tarrying, but we're still constantly rehearsing what he has already shown us and is giving us more time of prayer and preparation, just like the early disciples prepared themselves before Pentecost as well. And like we talked about in our last video, it's the waiting period that shows where our faith is, and it shows what is in our lamp. Now, when you study the poster, and we've talked about this before, Jupiter will be departing out from Leo's feet in July 14th. So that is the max on the time frame that we're looking at, the absolute max to fit the fulfillment of the celestial sign mentioned in Genesis, but then with it also tying in with the spring feast too as well. That would be about the max date, it appears, because then the Genesis passage would no longer be relevant. And when we look at where we are at right now, it's a very important time. We've seen a lot build up to this point, and we've been rehearsed through a lot of shadow patterns and events and historical events and markers too as well, particularly recently with Israel, but still right now with the same. And today starts the biblical month 4. The new moon was sighted in Jerusalem, so this starts month 4 on the biblical calendar. A calendar that completely ignores the rabbinical precepts and man's made-up rules. One that totally goes by the celestial signs, like the Bible says on the very first page. Now, on June 7th will be the historical Jerusalem Day, when Jerusalem was recaptured back during the Six-Day War. That would be the historical date on the Gregorian calendar. It was commemorated back on the 4th and 5th, though. So we're still in a very important prophetic time with a lot of significance and a lot going on. And in a couple days is the rabbinical Shavuot, and commonly known as Pentecost. But we have pointed out many times before that it is out of sync with the harvest cycle by over a month. It's a clear violation of God's commands regarding the spring feast, particularly the first fruits. This date is set by blind guides, and that is why I'm not really excited about that date at all. It's really not showing up on my radar. I'm not concerned about it or worried about it. But we can see how they are being set up for deception by following blind guides. If you follow a blind guide, you will eventually find yourself in the ditch. So they are following men's precepts, and they're just setting themselves up for further deception. We had talked about several videos ago about how the harvest cycles in Israel this year lined up exactly with the biblical calendar that we've been following, but how the rabbinical Pentecost, that's 79 days after the barley harvest starts, when the Bible tells us it should be 50 to 57 days after the barley harvest starts. That's the typical time frame that it should fall into, but they are way off, way off. And again, we are expecting some major prophetic events any day now, and that's what we're waiting on. And then, of course, that triggers a whole bunch of other following events too as well. And we have to keep in mind the rabbinical Shavuot is when they will have on their mind the idea of the covenant at Mt.Sinai. So, unfortunately, they are being set up in a sense to accept or be very open to the idea of having it on their mind of being open to another covenant being made with them too as well. But this rabbinical Shavuot is man's precept by blind guides. And we take special notice that in scriptures, Jesus Christ ignored and cursed the rabbinical system. So I would not peg your hopes on this rabbinical event that they picked out as being a fulfillment of prophecy. It will play a role possibly, but I would not peg my hopes on it at all. I'm not. And then in a couple days, on the 20th, will be the summer solstice, which is typically viewed as the celestial and astronomical start of summer. And June 20th what it will be in Israel. And we've seen a lot of signs and the Song of Solomon and many other things pointing toward the spring rapture and gathering of Shiloh's people. So that's just a marker. It's not definitive, but that just gives us an idea that summer is quickly approaching. So right now I would say that we have a high watch window in the next few days because there's still events of historical and prophetic importance with Jerusalem Day and the land of Israel. And then there's also events that are part of the deception, it appears, because they're setting the people up to have the mindset of accepting another covenant. And we've seen a lot happen in just the past 50 days. It seems like a lot more, but it's only been the past 50 days. And the enemy has been getting ready because they know this is the time. They don't know the day or hour, but they know that any day now the Son of Man, Jesus Christ, will be revealed. And then shortly thereafter, the Son of Perdition will be revealed. And they've been making a big push for the triumphal gate, their mimicry of it, and red, and the shedding of blood and gates, and their New World Order, and all of that we talked about before, in connection with the shedding of blood and persecution, the fifth seal of Revelation, and basically the whole crux of the idea that the gates of hell are about to be unleashed, the mystery of iniquity is about to be unrestrained, and the things that the world has enjoyed by the grace of God will quickly disappear, because they do not have a love of the truth and or of God. So hell is, in a sense, literally and figuratively about to be unrestrained and unleashed. And we've seen the messaging only increase in its blatantness in just the past few days, and extremely disturbing messaging that they're putting out. And all this is just within the past 50 days. It's been ramping up incredibly, and they are getting their disciples ready, and they are celebrating right now, getting ready for it. They know what time it is. They're getting ready. They are getting anxious. They're getting excited. They are living in light of what they see on the horizon. Christian, we need to be aware of what time it is. We need to be watching, and we need to take heed. In other words, we need to make our life actions reflect what we know and what we believe. If we believe that the Son of Man is about to be revealed, we had better start living like it. We better start shining bright and purifying ourselves and getting ourselves ready. Time is very short. We are running out of time. And Satan is going to be reminding his disciples every single day now to stay ready and to stay on top of their game, because they know it is any day. And this is one reason why we as Christians need to rehearse everything that the Lord has shown us, because it is so easy to get distracted and to be doubtful at this time. So let's constantly rehearse what the Lord has already shown us and use that and put that in our lamp, build our shield of faith, and stay ready. Now, one piece of media messaging that the enemy has used recently, and we've talked about this before, is the Independence Day resurgence that is coming out later on this month. And we've already talked about a lot of the trailers that they put out were echoing very similar messages and themes to the Arch in Trafalgar and the womb and all the other messaging that was in that, mirroring it almost exactly, but just in a different story form. And then also the CERN technology, and we linked that to the Alice technology at CERN too as well. We talked about that, and traveling down time, and how they acted it all out in parable form in connection with Big Ben and the Eye of Apollo, the River Thames representing the River of Time in Greenwich, as well as destroying the two pillars and the gateways and the bridges and all that. We talked about all that before, and how they know that the Alice figure who's going to turn back the hands of time is almost here. And that's the whole crux of the Alice film, but it's also woven into this Independence Day resurgence film and trailers that is coming out very soon too as well. They've tied these two together to make sure their disciples get the messages. And we talked about how on their promotional website, they went out of their way to make a special, slightly hidden message that they know what prophetic time it is. They included there in the dark, the time has come, repent while you can. And they're mocking Christians because they know the time more than most Christians and most churches. And the churches aren't getting ready. They aren't living in light of that time has come. What are we doing? The enemy is getting their disciples ready and keeping them ready. And so today they put out another very short trailer, but it had some important messages. It's very short, and it starts out in the lobby of what looks to be like a safari house somewhere in Africa. And the walls are just covered with different hunting trophies, and they even have a lion there that they're drawing attention to. But a lot of horned creatures on the wall, which kind of evokes the Cernunnos figure. But then they bring attention to the main actor is looking at this particular section of wall, which is in the shape of a pyramid, with strong concepts of the two pillars and twins that we talked about before in connection with the horned figure Cernunnos down at the bottom. A very disturbing imagery, that, especially in light of what we saw with the tunnel just the other day too as well. But in just this very short trailer, they're emphasizing the mystery of iniquity and going through the gateways and the two pillars and the twins and all that. And then it quickly changes scenes to where they're coming through a doorway. Again, drawing attention to the doorways because they know the doorways, the gateways are about to open. The son of perdition is about to make his triumphal entry. The doors are about to open as soon as he is unrestrained. Now in this scene, right before they come through the door, you'll notice off to the left, there is a gold lion again. It might be a type of sphinx, it's kind of hard to tell. But bringing attention to the gold lion again. And you've heard me say a bazillion times that everything done in high dollar movies and with top grade actors, nothing is done by accident. This was put there deliberately. So there's a gold lion, and that instantly reminded me of the Lego Dimensions game with the illuminated eye and the portal. We talked about that before in the CERN technology. But how in the trailer, when they released that, they also included a gold lion up there as well, letting them know this is all connected. And of course they tied in the Wizard of Oz going over the rainbow, going over the dimensional doorway and through a whirlwind, just like Elijah too as well. Using a lot of messaging, but tying it back to the lion, the gold lion. And so it caught my attention when they tied that in here directly to the opening of doorways again, just like in the Lego trailer. Which was also just like in Katy Perry's halftime show at the Super Bowl, where she came in on the gold lion, the Phoenix figure, the Prometheus figure, and they came through a gateway that was opened up using particles too as well. And the commercial that she did prior to that, they also emphasized coming through doorways in connection with the alien Great Deception, which they're getting the world ready for. All of this is connected as part of getting the world ready for it. So it shouldn't surprise us that this movie about aliens is tied in with the exact same theme. They know all this is about to happen, and they know that the beast is about to come through the gateway. So then in a later scene, the main actor is looking at a wall of different figures and pictures. And right away our eyes are drawn to the different red T figures and the Omega figure as well. But primarily the T, which reminds us a lot of Thoth, which they've definitely made a lot of messaging of recently. And we have an article on that, Time in Tomorrowland, that talks about Thoth, who is the equivalent to Hermes or Mercury. And they've been pushing that and conditioning the world to those concepts too as well. But then it's also, again, in the Lego Dimensions with the portals and with the alchemical sign for Mercury on the portal and CERN technology too as well. They know they're all connected. So they're messaging their disciples of these themes that they're about to happen. But then they also bring attention to the red and blue with the University of Oxford diploma there on the wall too. And it's very out of place. And they make sure it's in the scene. And they make sure that if you're really paying attention, you'll notice that it's kind of pushed to the forefront a little bit. In this whole scene, which is very chaotic and things tacked up all over the wall, this is put there for a reason. And it's put next to these figures and the T's and the Omegas for a reason. And the University of Oxford is very important when you consider the context. Oxford is where Alice in Wonderland originated from. Lewis Carroll went on a rowing trip on the Isis, which is a section of the river above the River Thames, Isis. And this is where the story originated, in Oxford. This is where it was first published. So they're bringing attention to the Alice, which they've done in other areas too as well. So we know this is a strong connection, reinforcing and pointing again to Alice, reminding them of the Alice concept of one they are expecting to come back and turn back the hands of time. But then it also reminds us of the Triumphal Arch, which they set up in Trafalgar Square just several days ago. And if we go to the Institute for Digital Archaeology on their website, on their main page, they mention that it's going to be set up in Oxford this summer. The arch, which was set up in Trafalgar Square, is going to be set up in Oxford, where the Alice in Wonderland story originated, and it's going to be in July and August, which is in just a few days, which was also when the Alice in the Wonderland story was written too as well, July, in Oxford. All of this is connected. So they're tying together the Alice technology, going down the rabbit hole, with the Alice movie that is in movie theaters right now, reminding them of a lot of other themes, in connection with time and the one they're expecting to come back and turn back the hands of time. And it's also connected to the Triumphal Arch, which is thematically connected to the Baal Arch too as well, and in connection with the CERN technology and portals and Mercury and all that too as well. Satan knows what time it is, and he knows what is about to happen, and his disciples know what is about to happen too as well. They know sudden destruction is about to spring like a snare on the world, and that the church is largely ignorant of what the time is and what they should be doing right now. Christian, do you know what time it is? Are you living like you know what time it is? All of the major messaging that we've been looking at has only been taken place within the past 50 days. Think about that. The enemy knows very well that the day is approaching and that the day is here. They know what time it is. They know what the proper calendar is right now too. They are making themselves ready because they know things are about to happen. We do not know the day or hour, but we do know that time is running out and things are only intensifying. And so we must constantly stay ready and vigilant. We have a high watch window, and we will constantly assess and ask the Lord for wisdom as the days go by. But in the meantime, while we wait, we will make ourselves ready. And we will rehearse everything that the Lord has already shown us and how He has drawn our attention to this time and told us to wait. Just like the church and the disciples prior to Pentecost, the Lord told them to wait. We find ourselves at that same shadow pattern too. So we wait and rehearse all the promises that the Lord has told us and all the letters that He has given to us to tell us of how we make ourselves ready. And we review what we should be doing as the bride of Christ, getting ready for His return. And in our booklet, we have reminders from Scripture of the great commandment of how we give the different parts of our life, our mind, our heart, our soul, all of that to seeking after Christ and how Christ can shine brighter in our life. So while we wait, we make ourselves ready. And this time also shows what is in our heart and life, whether it's Christ or whether it's just a head knowledge. Christ is looking for those who love Him. And that is what the letters to the 7 churches dwell on, is who loves Him, who is desiring to see Him, and who is living in light of His return, and who is living for eternity. So while we wait, we will fix our eyes on Him. We will lift up our heads, for our redemption draweth nigh, and we will spend time in His Word, and we'll spend time talking to Him in prayer. Serve the Lord first and highest above all else. Maranatha.